So welcome to the first week of our webinars, and this week we'll be talking about goal setting. So goal setting is something that everybody has to do, and we do a lot of in this sport especially. So does anyone have any ideas, raise a hand if you do, of why we need to goal set and what the importance of goal setting is? Anybody at all? Someone must know a reason why we want to set goals. Is this oh, there we go. We've got a hand from Owen. Perfect. There you go, Owen. You can now answer.
Oh, here we go.
There you
go. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Well, with goal setting, it's very important because it's good to plan out your season ahead as coming into a race. If you plan to win, you got the mindset to make sure that you can do better and you'll feel more confident going into the race. So it's quite important to do. And it's better with the coach because they can see what you're aiming for.
Yeah, perfect. So you can plan ahead. So you know what you're aiming for. So you've got something to look forward to and keep motivated. So yeah, that's a really good one. Anybody else? Got any answers? Thanks for that, Owen. Right, well, I'll give you one. One is to be able to monitor and track your progress. So if you don't have any goals, you don't know what you're aiming for. So then you can't track what you're progressing to and you can't see where you've come from. So it can be really hard to then find motivation if you don't know what you're motivating for and where you've come from. Another one also is you feel good. You feel good when you've achieved your goals, and it helps to motivate you and keep you wanting to ride and do things like that. So yeah, there's a couple of reasons why goal setting is so important. Hugh, to answer your question, there should be in the top right, there should be a little hand icon, and if you click that, then you should be able to answer a question. Just to answer your question there. Can you see that now? There we go. Perfect. Ooh. That did work, but it's now disappeared. Oh, bottom middle. Sorry, it must be different on your screen. So that when I was looking at it earlier, it was at the top right. Perfect. So we'll carry on. And if we ask questions later, then we can try it again later if that's okay. If not, just use the chat function and then you can send some messages to that. Perfect. So types of goals. I've got plenty of different types of goals, but mainly when we're talking about goals, we need to think about duration. So you've got your long-term goals. Your long-term goals are sort of goals that are in the next 2 to 3 years, maybe, or even your end of career goal. So that'd be like racing at the Olympics or going to the Tour de France. And then you take a step back and you want to talk about your mid-term goals. So those are things that you want to achieve by the end of the year. So that'll be 2, 3 big race goals. So that'll be races that you want to do well in, or things like that that you want to progress further. Then you've got your short-term goals, and there'll be sort of things that are more day-to-day. So it could be, I want to improve my power, or I want to complete all my sessions in this week's block, and things like that. So I'm going to give you all a couple of minutes. If you all can just have a think of maybe one of these goals that you can kind of pass back to me. And then once you've thought about it, then can you raise a hand for me if that's working? Has anybody got any goals at all? I'm sure one of the 24 of you guys can manage to raise a hand and answer that question. Yeah, it could be anything. Just so that you have a sort of idea of what a mid-term or a long-term goal would be. Yes, Ian? When you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so one goal I just thought of is if any rider wants to obtain a Category 2 or Category 1 throughout the year. It's kind of like
perfect. That's something also is really relevant to you guys, especially anybody coming up wanting to gain their second category license so that they can race more races. Perfect. Thank you for that, Ian. And Owen's also tuned in.
I'd say for one of my goals would be the Cams Yorkshire Classic. It's round 5 of the Nationals, and I've got my eye on it. I'd like to have a decent result in it, maybe finish top 20, hopefully.
Perfect. Fantastic. Thanks for that, Owen. So now we've figured out that we can use that raise hands feature, so that's really good. And we're going to talk a bit more about different types of goals. That's good, Zoe. Thanks for that in the chat. And anyone, if you can't raise your hand or don't know how to, or it's not working, just drop it down into the chat, and then we can also communicate via that. Now we're going to go on to different types of goals. So we've got the source of goals. So you've got the goal in the time frame, and then you've also got to split it down into what you're aiming for. So you can have outcome goals, and these are results based. So they'll be, like Owen said, wanted to do well in the Cams Classic or things like that. Then you have medium term goals, which will be, sorry, not medium term goals, process goals. And these are little things. So these will be skill based. So they could be learning to bunny hop, like Charles has just said. They could be pedaling technique. They could be really little things that once they add up together will help you achieve your main goal. And then you've got performance-based goals. So this will be your new power PBs or personal best times. And they're all based on you and they don't rely on other people. So that's what you need to think about when you're setting your goals is how are you going to measure that? And does it rely on other people or is it just relying on yourself? And then we go into SMART. Have any of you guys heard of SMART? If you do your GCSE or A-level PE, you might have heard of SMART. Anybody? You can message in the chat if you have or haven't. Yeah. So I thought of quite a few of you would have heard of SMART. So SMART is an acronym. So each letter stands for one of the things that you need to think about when goal setting. So Charles has got the first one there for you. It's specific. So it has to be related to what you're doing and be specific. There's no point in having a vague goal of I want to be better at this. You want to have a specific thing that you want to improve. So I want to be better at, I don't know, I want my power to be better. So I want my power to be at a certain value. So I want my FTP to be 250 watts, for example. It has to be accurate and not vague. And it has to be also related to your overall goal. So if you've got a smaller goal, you need to make sure it's related to the next goal along. Then you've got M, that's measurable. So as I said earlier with the power, you need to be able to measure it. There's no good just saying, oh, well, I want to be better, or how are you going to know if you're better? To make it measurable, you need to be able to define it. You need to be able to tell yourself, yes, I've done that, or no, I haven't. So that is how we get measurable. And then Caden's just said achievable for A. Perfect. That's right. So achievable. Achievable means that it needs to be something within reach. There's no point me going and saying I want to go and win the Tour de France tomorrow, because it's not going to happen. So you need to have it within your capability and also within a reasonable time frame. So you need to make sure that it's also not too easy, because there's no point setting a goal that you're going to achieve, for example, to win your local league. If you know that you're more capable of winning a national race, there's no point setting those smaller goals that aren't really very beneficial. Then we've got R. Does anyone know what R stands for? Perfect, Charles. Thanks for that. So realistic. As I said earlier, it needs to be something that can be achieved and you have access to. So it needs to be races that you can enter. It needs to be against people that you can race against. It needs to be in a discipline that you have the experience in racing. So it all needs to be realistic and something that you will be able to complete in the right time frame. Moving on to time frame, T is time. Perfect, Caden. Thank you for that. So time frame, you need to have an idea of when you want that goal to be completed by. There's no point having a goal but not having a time that you need it done by, because then you just won't do it. You won't have any motivation to do it, and it won't be completed to the best of your ability, because you won't be pushing yourself to get that result. So that's why time framed is really important. So now that we've spoken about SMART goals, can we all have a couple of minutes and just think about a SMART goal? So think about the goal that you said. So for example, Owen's goal from earlier of the Cannes Classic. You can now make it SMART. So specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time related. And then I'll pick on one of you, or you can raise your hands to then explain to everybody else how you've made that goal go from just being a plain goal to a SMART goal that will help you achieve it better. Some of you seem to have had plenty of experience with SMART goals, so I'm sure you've got a SMART goal already. Perfect, you. So now how are we going to make that SMART? If you want to raise your hand, then we can talk through it with each other, if that helps. If anyone wants to talk through one of theirs. Perfect. So that should be letting you talk now, Hugh. I'm not sure what's happening here. Can you try that again? Oh, hang on a minute. There we go. Let's see if that works. I don't think that's going to be working. Can you try and speak, Hugh? It's just a visual issue. I don't think that's going to work, unfortunately. Can anybody else share a goal? Charles, do you want to raise your hand and we can have a chat through your goal about your TT? Perfect.
So yeah, it's just like a local time, like a quicker time on it by 5%.
Yeah, so you could say by 5%, or you could, for example, if you know your PB, you could set a benchmark time. So if you watched your, for example, sorry, what's your 10-mile time trial PB? Roughly.
I'm not sure about that.
So let's say it was, I don't know, 24 minutes. So you could then change that to say you wanted to be doing a 23:30, for example. So you'd put your time in to make it measurable and specific.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. And when do you want to achieve that by?
Or whenever the race is. I'm not sure about what date it is, but by that date.
Oh, okay. So it's a specific race that you want to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. So thanks for that one, Charles. And anybody else got any goals they want to talk about? Come on, I think we can have one more goal. Out of the 25 people in this group, I'm sure there must be one more person willing to share a goal with me. Perfect. So we'll talk through this one because your mic's not working to you. We'll talk through it in the chat. So you want to stay with the break in the Junior National Series. Perfect. So is there a specific event that we could talk, that you want to aim for to make it specific? Yeah, so perfect. So you want to be in the break at the Tiverton Road race. Perfect. So that's specific and it's measurable because you're either in it or you're not. Achievable. Well, that's up to you. I don't know well enough your personal ability at the moment, but if you think that's achievable, then that's tick that box. Realistic. Again, the same. It's an event you can enter, and you can get that result, so that's fine. And T, time frames, again, is by that time. Perfect. So does anybody have any questions at all from what we've said so far? Yeah, so that'll be a really good goal for you here because it's a tactical goal and it's something that you need to improve on. That's another thing with goal setting. It's really important that you base it on something that you're not so good at, because there's no point setting goals that you're always going to tick off and achieve because you're good at them. You want to pick those things that you are struggling with so that when you achieve the goal, it makes you a better bike rider as a whole. And it goes for everything with life. It's not just bike riding that will make you a better cyclist by picking up things that you're struggling with. It's the same with everything in life. Picking up the things that you're struggling with will help you become a better person. So guys, do we have any questions about goal setting at all? Not one question. I'll answer your question first, Hugh, and then I think Paul's going to chip in. Oh, there we go. So how do you know what races to target? Perfect. So targeting races, we'll come into this in one of the other webinars. We'll go into this in a bit more detail. But knowing what races to target, the first thing you want to look into is what are your strengths? Do you want to be targeting a race that's hilly if you're a sprinter? Probably not. So you want to look at what you're better at. Also, where you are in your own personal fitness. If you've just had an injury, you want to set your target races further on in the season. If you had a really good winter, or you've just come off the back of the cyclocross season, then you want to set your goals at the start of the season, because you're coming into the season fitter than a lot of other people will be. So it's things like that you need to think about when you're thinking about target races. Also, the level of the races, because your target race, for example, if you're a strong national level rider, would be to do well in a national race, and that would be a podium or a result like that. Whereas you could also have different target races where you want to do well, but they're a bit above your current ability level, but you want to target it because you want to do the best you can in that level of race. So, for example, if you're racing abroad, you'd still want to target that race because it's something that's harder, so you want to be fitter for it. So that's I hope that's answered your question, Hugh. And then after that, we've got Paul asked, who can they talk to about setting goals? So there's plenty of people you can talk to about setting goals. First of all, you can need to have a think yourself and kind of go through it yourself. But then to check your goals, you can check with your parents if they understand the racing and see whether they think it's something that you can achieve. You can check with your team, if you're on a team, or your club. There'll be some knowledgeable either team manager or coach at the club that you can check with, or your own personal coach. The personal coach will be the best one because they'll probably know you better, so that then they can give you more useful advice, and maybe also suggest some goals for you that you hadn't already thought of. And then we've got Charles has asked, what is a good amount of goals to set per season? So it depends what you mean by goals. If you're meaning goals as in goals, race target goals, probably I'd say 2 or 3. Usually either with quite a big gap between them. So like one at the start of the season and one in the middle towards the end. Would be quite good for setting goals, because then it gives you time to recover and then rebuild for the next goal. But also in between those goals, you still need those stepping stone goals to keep you motivated and to keep you going and keep you motivated. So that would be things like, oh, well, I want to increase my power. I want to do a quicker time in this TT this week. I want to complete more of this session than I did last week. And things like that are little stepping stone goals that when you tick them off, it gives you a really good feeling. So things like that are what you need to consider as goals, as well as your end game goals. And then you also need to think about how you're piecing the pieces of the puzzle together, because there's no point thinking, oh, well, I want to win this race at the end of the season when you've not planned how to get there. If you can see the way you've planned to get to that goal, you're more likely to achieve it, because you're going to tick those things off and you're going to give yourself the best chance of achieving that goal because you've prepared the best you can. Any more questions before we wrap this up? So guys, what I want you to do before next week's session, I want you to all have had a little bit of a think about these SMART goals, and come up with a couple of them for next week, if you can attend. And we'll go through just at the start of the session, before we go on to our Q&A, we'll just go through a couple of the SMART goals that you've set for yourselves, and we can just check that they are SMART, so that you have the best chance for the upcoming season. Thank you for joining us tonight. And last chance to ask any questions before we finish for the evening. Thank you for joining us, guys, and I'll see you later then.